Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural session of the Organic Home Gardening webinar series organized by Delma Conservation. This series was organized following the success of the previous series on organic home gardening. This time, however, you will receive a valuable certificate for your participation. There are 7 sessions throughout in this course, and throughout the series, you will learn how to design your home garden, understand what crops to grow, how to prepare plant beds, which fertilizers to use, and how to manage pests and diseases. There are 3 types of certificates that you will receive after this webinar. You complete this webinar. The first type is a certificate of participation, which will be awarded for the attendees who have attended a minimum of 6 sessions of this series. The second is the certificate of merit, which will be awarded to attendees who have participated in a minimum of 6 webinars and also completed some of the assessment and sent in photos as proof. The next type is the certificate of distinction, which will be awarded to attendees who have attended a minimum of 6 webinars and also completed all the assessments and sent in photos as proof. Please note that all participants must register with a working email address for the webinar series to be eligible for any of the certificates. And so our resource person for the day is Mr. Anuradha Ranasinghe, who is an entrepreneur and agricultural consultant of ABBA Agro Consultancy. I welcome you on behalf of Dilma T and Dilma Conservation for today's session. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A tab, or you can put them as comments in our Facebook live session. But please refrain from asking any questions in the chat section of the webinar. During this webinar, there will be interesting poll questions, and you are welcome to give them a try to make this webinar more interactive. So without further ado, I welcome Mr. Anuradha to continue the session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all in this evening. So we are going to start another lecture series, how to do engage with home gardening. So this is a 7-day lecture series, and you'll be covering from basic home gardening concepts, plus how to maintain your garden, how to design, then how to control pest, how to manage water. Likewise, this is a 7-step formula. We did this during last year also, but now this year we are going to organize we are more organized, and we are going to do it in a little bit advanced manner, as Hansini mentioned. So first of all, today I'm going to discuss about how to design your home garden. So this is the basic lesson of the series, but this is the most important session, because sometimes you might thinking, okay, we do home gardening, and our problems are we don't know how to apply natural fertilizer, or how to control pests, or sometimes you might be having problems. We are doing a lot of we put a lot of efforts, and we are working a lot in the garden, but we are not getting expected results. So those are the problems you have, common problems. So to address these, we need to design our garden in a proper manner. So that's why this lesson is very important. Then you will identify how to select crops, how to identify various environmental factors, how to identify various flows and patterns in your garden. That means the sunlight or wind or any other environmental factors, and how important to consider about your kids while you are designing the garden, and how important to think about your dogs or any other animals involved in the garden, and how to protect your garden. So this kind of various things we will be discussing, and this is the core of this webinar series, because unless you design in your garden in a proper way, you will be facing many problems in future and you won't get the expected result. So that's why we are doing it as a very first lecture of this series. So let's discuss what are the importance of a proper garden design. So this is the first most important thing. We need to identify why designing a garden is very important. So one is we need to optimally use resources, and we should have the easiness to crop in crop selection and management, and it should be convenient to our day-to-day practices, and it has to be relevant to our purposes. So, and because home garden is not only producing crops or any other fruit or vegetable, and the appearance should be there. So in details, I will discuss why these factors are very important, and it has to be very cost effective, and there shouldn't be any risk of doing home gardening, and finally sustainability. So our garden should be, we should run this garden in a very sustainable manner. So let's discuss these things. So first topic is resources. I think we will be having a poll question. Consider.
So we have a first poll question for the day, which is which of these are considered resources in home gardening? The options are soil, sunlight, space, water, and all of the above. So let's see what our participants have said. So 93% believe that all of the above. So all these resources are considered important when home gardening. Anuradha, what's the actual answer?
Yes, exactly. I think majority understood that resources are. Shall we move to the next slide, please, Sansini? Okay. So as discussed, we can consider resources as soil, sunlight, and the weather, and all the other things as resources. So we need to optimally use them in home gardening. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste. And other thing is we can moderate, or we can control some factors, like sometimes. And the other thing is we can improve these resources if we are doing it this in a better manner. So first we'll discuss about soil. So if once we consider about soil, when we start home gardening, we need to identify about the type of soil first. So whether your soil type is clay, or it's a sandy soil, or whether it's a loamy or neutral soil, so you need to identify that one. Then again, you need to think about the texture of the soil. Sometimes your soil texture can be very gravel soil. Sometimes it can be very waterlogging soil, or it can be it can get very hard during the dry period. So that kind of likewise, you need to identify the texture of the soil. Then you need to understand the organic matter availability as well. That means you need to find out whether your soil is rich with organic matter or having less organic matter. So if your soil is prone to more erosion, you might not find enough organic matter in your soil. So then you need to moderate. So these things you need to identify once you design your gardens, because the soil is a very important thing. But don't worry, there might be some people who will be having their own small simple back garden, or some vertical garden, or hydroponics, or even a small rooftop garden. But don't worry about it. So soil is very important, because even you grow it in a container, unless you do hydroponic, soil is very important. So, and texture and organic matter, everything based on the soil. So let's discuss the other resource in home gardening. Sunlight. This is another very important factor when we consider home gardening. So actually this is a real picture. This is my home garden, which is in gold. So you need to identify how powerful we say it as light intensity, or how much amount of sunlight you will be getting throughout the day. Because if we take some home garden, sometimes you will be getting some areas we may be getting sunlight from 8 in the morning up to 5 in the afternoon. But some areas you might be getting only 2 to 3 hours. So, and some areas which are under trees, you might be getting only 4 to 6 hours. So we need to categorize your garden, whether what are the areas you will be getting full sunlight. That means 6 to 8 hours, and partial sunlight 4 to 6 hours, and uh, and low sunlight. That means only very 2 to 4 hours during the day. So based on the sunlight, then availability, you need to select crops, and you need to place crops, and you can manage different topographical levels. So as I did, the full sunny required crops you can place in a fully sunny area, while the partial shade required crops, and you can block the if you need to get shade, then you can uh, then you can moderate the sunlight availability, use growing different kinds of uh, growing different kinds of especially crops, doing like that. So shall we move to the next slide, please? Then the other resource is space, because as we all know, we all are having limited, most of the gardeners, sometimes you will be having very limited amount of space in your garden. So you need to optimally use them, because you need to walk through these areas, and you need to engage with any other activities. But if you are really passionate on agriculture, if you are very smart, then you can you optimally use the space in your garden, uh, 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 like using different techniques. Like now, if we take this is a small small backyard. Uh, it's a small backyard. So in a garden, so they have designed it in a very attractive manner, keeping a small gap which they can walk across, and they have grown bitter gourd, but still they can keep their firewood, and they can store some things, but still they can come and move in. Look at this diagram, you can find out, because small plants, so this is a model backyard system. Smaller plants can, Hansini, please, can you unmute the other participants, please? Sorry, mute the other parts. I think I'm getting some.
Okay.
Okay, right. So now, if it this is a typical model home garden. This is just a design. So you can identify now we how we need to manage space, because shorter the crops which are having very less height, they can come to the front, and taller plants, they can go to the back. Then it will give some control. It will not control, but it will sometimes it can control the sunlight availability, as well as it will manage the space. So taller plants can go back, while small plants can come and occupy in the front area. Then it's easy to manage also. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is another typical structure how we can manage the balcony. So yeah, right. There's a question. I will answer to all questions once we finish this. Session. So now this is the balcony. Now you can see some bigger pots has gone into the back area, while the smaller pots occupied in the front area. So imagine if you have changed these things, if you have put all these small pots into interior area and bring these all the bigger pots into outside, then you will feel difficulties in managing and special difficulties not managing. You won't be having enough space to interact with the plants, because you need more space to go and do any other management practices, even watering or treat for pests likewise. So always you need to keep the smaller plants up front, because you need to manage your space to reach to the area in a very effective or convenient manner. So let's, if you see this kind of vertical garden even in a balcony, so this is the actually this is the way you need to design, because the taller ones should come first, and the shorter plants like herbs and lettuce or any other greens, they can occupy in the middle area. So it's always up to you, because we cannot strictly say this is the way, this is the area, this should be dedicated for this plant, but you need to always keep it in mind that the height should be, that means always more the higher the tall plants should go back, while the small ones should come in the front. So I think we have another good background, another good picture of a rooftop garden. So this is what I have mentioned. So all the shorter crops like herbs and other small crops, they come into the front, and the taller ones, they goes to the back. So then there's another advantage also, when during even at the heavy sunlight, these walls won't get too warm, because the trees are giving a natural canopy, and these trees are covering the walls, and it will not the interior rooms won't get any heat reflection because of this tree cover. And you can see all these pots located in a gap. So that means you can walk through each and every pot and reach the plant and do the management practice. And the smaller plants has come first, because then the sunlight can penetrate these smaller plants and reach to the bigger plants. So this is a typical structure how you can think about while you are designing your home garden, considering the space. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Then the other resource is water, because this can be a biggest problem for most of you, because most of the gardens in Kalusara, Gampaha, Kurunegala, and even in Kalutara, prone to heavy rains. So always you need to manage water. So I will be discussing more in the next topic, in our fourth topic, I think, water management. But the importance of using managing water and considering as a factor, as a resource, water, because there are some soils which are too much prone to water logging condition, and there can be some soils easily water can be drained, but even after another 2 to 3 days after heavy rain, you may be able to need to apply water again. So you need to identify the type of the soil, as well as the water availability of your garden. If your garden is more prone to water logging, then you need to design raised beds. I will explain it to you in land preparation techniques. But this is another factor you need to consider about while you are designing your home garden. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Then crop selection and management. This is very important because this is the point where most of the gardens, desperado gardens get discouraged during home gardening, because we need to select crops according to the availability of resources. As I mentioned before, if our garden is too shady and we cannot grow sun-loving crops. But if our garden is too sunny, we cannot grow shade-loving crops. And some gardens are very disappointed because some gardeners are very disappointed because sometimes they think, they say, I need to grow this plant, this fruit, this variety. Unfortunately, I don't have space. So space is a very limited factor and which we cannot control. And soil type, there's another thing, because some crops prefer sandy soils while some crops prefer little hard soil. And weather, also another important thing. So when depends on because some areas are having cool climates and heavy rains or less rains. Some areas are dry and they are getting rain during certain period of time during the year. So depends on all these factors. Only we need to think about selecting a crop. So if we are having enough sunlight, so all kinds of fruits and vegetables, previous like this. So if we are having more sunlight, then we can place more sunlight loving crops. And if we have more space, then definitely, of course, we can grow anything if we have sunlight. And the other important factor is time, because if you have very limited time, and then you need to select crops which require less time. Like if we plant fruit trees doesn't need too much interaction between us during the management or during the growth stage. But if we take vegetables need more input from us because they are short duration plants. So they need more input from us. So if the gardener is not having enough time, it's better. And if he or she still likes in home gardens, better thing is to go for longer duration. That means perennial crops, what we call crops which grow more than 1 year, or which exist more than 2 to 3 years. So they are the perennial crops. So better to go for perennial crops, because if your time can be a limited factor in home gardening. So that is the model, because crop selection always need to happen according to these factors or resources which we have discussed before. And soil type and all things. So all these things we'll be discussing again and again during our next 6 sessions, because we cannot take this apart and discuss, because this is the core of home gardening. So we need to first consider all these things to have a very successful home garden. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I think we have a poll question here, considering.
Yeah, so this is the second poll question. Out of these two pictures, A and B, which of these is the most appropriate design for shade purposes? So we have so let's see what the participants have to say. So
Interesting.
So 51% think A and 49% think B. Anurag, what is your opinion?
Yes, it's quite interesting so to see the results. So this is these both are shade structures. Somebody can tell, yes, or these are both are walkways. So one person has has grown snake gourd over this structure, and another person has grown grapes. So if we take the convenience factor, because if this is a walkway, it's beautiful, it's very good growing snake gourds in between. But if we frequently moving in through this road or this walkway, sometimes these fruits can be a disturbance for us. Or sometimes if we move if we have in a rush, and if we walk in a if we run through this, these fruits can be damaged. These gods can be damaged. So we need to always think about the convenience and how relevant this 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 crop to our response. So if we take the shade purpose, so this grapevine is a good selection because it's give a very thick cover, thick thick cover over the like a hedge or like a good shade uh, 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 over the walkway. But this is will not give that kind of a this kind of a what we call this kind of a purpose for us for us. So we need to always think about the convenience, because we always moving in our home garden because it's our garden and we have other utility factors in the garden. So we need to consider about that one as well as the purpose when we are designing our home garden. So B is the most convenient and most relevant to the purpose. Then again, we need to think about our day-to-day activities in the garden, because so this is our home is where we live and home garden is where we roam around. So we need to clean that place well. So, and it has to be cleaning is also very important when we consider about especially snails and pest management in home garden. And other than that, we need to clean it and maintain it well. So if we imagine if we plant everywhere in your garden, and if we keep keep pots everywhere inside in the garden, you won't be able to walk and engage in with your day-to-day activities. Like imagine if you need to clean, it may be very difficult for you to clean the garden. So if pots are everywhere, and kids also like to play, and they like to run and ride bicycles in the garden. So then you need to think about that factor and design your home garden thinking other day-to-day activities. Apart from that, vehicle parking is also very important. So there might be any functions in your garden, so you need to, or your regular vehicle you will be parking there, so your friends will be visiting. So you need to think about that as well when designing the home garden, because you may be happy to grow crops everywhere in the garden, because as if you are a very passionate in home gardening. But you need to think always, okay, I love gardening, but garden means a home garden means different other utility factors also there. That means different other functions also happening there. So then we need to think those factors and design the garden for your easiness and convenience. Next slide, please. Okay, and so our garden should be very beautiful, and it should attract butterflies and other types of birds. Oh, so then only it will be more beautiful, and you always your visitors are coming, your relatives coming, so it has to be designed with a good appearance. So if you see this picture, the marigolds or the aspetia has grown, So it's a very good insect repellent. I will tell about this in later on. And the cabbages are grown here, Chinese cabbage, greens, and the beds are designed in a very curve shaped beds are designed. So it gives a good appearance to the visitors as well as the people members who live in the garden. So always try to get a good appearance when you design the garden. Then only it will give, even if you may need to maintain, that also easy if you come up with a good design. And again, other thing is it gives you a very nice appearance to you and your neighbors and all the people who visit your garden. Then the other thing is cost effectiveness. So this is also we need to think very carefully, especially selecting crops and especially setting up a garden.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Resource person Mr. Anuradha will be back shortly.
Sorry about the inconvenience as my line got disconnected. So as I mentioned before, we need to always think about how cost effective, because home garden we are trying to spend our time in a better way to get as a hobby, or get some do some exercises in the while engaging with home garden, and we are trying to get some crop or some harvest as well. So but the maintenance should be at the very low level. As I mentioned before, sometimes we grow crops in inappropriate places like boundaries or fences. Then it has grown wildly and without our control, and you may need to spend around 2 times, 3 times, or sometimes much more price than the income or the yield you will be getting from that crop. So it's very important factor. So always try to set up crops which you can easily maintain, like pruning or harvesting, because you have seen sometimes you have grown some wing beans, gambala, it has gone up to a bigger tree, or sometimes passion fruit, and you might be having difficulties in harvesting them. So those are the factors you need to consider, because it has to be low cost and it has to be under your control. And the other factor is risk management, because uh, sometimes because if you grow especially like vines and bushes, sometimes snakes can come and hide it. So that you should not create that kind of a environment in your intentionally you should not create. So you need to always maintain your crops and manage risk, and also physical damages, because if you plant a coconut tree next to your roof or garage, so the branches or fruits nuts can be fallen, and they can be damage your physical property. So sometimes while you are walking, or sometimes your kids are playing, then they might get harmed because of these trees. So always you need to think about cost effectiveness as well as risk, how to manage risk while you are designing your home garden. And the final and another important one is sustainability, because a home garden is big. It's like a somewhat like a family business. So we all the family members engage in this garden, and they do various kind of engage with various kind of activities, and we always it's not a seasonal thing. So throughout the year we are engaging with home gardening, and depending on the availability of our time. And we have another big issue, especially in urban, not well as urban, semi-urban and rural areas also now facing this problem uh, in waste management. So home garden is a very good solution for waste management, because all the compostable waste uh, we uh, we can use to make compost, and we can apply them to our crops. We can apply to our crops while composting. And the other things like any containers, any mega bottles, we can still use them to use them for the uh, use them for our gardening purposes. I will explain to you how you can be very creative and use this stuff for home garden. So it's another plus point of home gardening, that we will be managing waste, and it's very sustainable for our future and future for the environment. Then we can conserve seeds, because if we are doing home gardening, we do not need to purchase seeds all the time from the market. So if you have grown okra during this season, you can keep one or two okra pods, and dry them and keep them as seeds, and the following season you can use it. That's another important, and that's another thing in sustainability. Then you can share with your friends and who are doing home gardens, with your family members or friends or relatives. Then that's another part of sustainability we are going to address. And home garden is not a one-time business. So we should not think it's okay. This is the season I'm going to grow, and the following after this week I'm not going to do any planting. So year round you can do planting. So that means every week you'll be planting at least one variety. So you'll be maintaining different types of varieties, different fruits, vegetables, herbs, and some spices. So everything you can grow in the home garden, and you need to engage with planting as well as harvesting throughout the year if you are doing home gardening. So that's the sustainability aspect of home gardening. Okay, then there are some limitations as well as some opportunities in home gardening as well. So limitations, one is availability of time. Sometimes you won't be get enough time to engage in the home garden. So you may have experience when you don't have time to spend enough time in the home garden, your garden is going to uh, get abandoned, or sometimes grasses come out, and they have covered all your plants. Sometimes you could not prune some trees, and they have grown wildly. So you need to always think about the availability of time, how many hours you can spend in your garden, and or how many uh, hours, how many days during the week you can spend on your garden. Then you can select crops, and you can do the management practice. Then the other thing is climate and weather, because as we all face climate change problems, so we are not getting expected rain during certain period of time period. But as a result of that, we get very harsh environment conditions. Sometimes we are getting high rainfall during some days, some periods of time, and all the gardens can be destroyed because of heavy rain. So we need to, we should not disappointed, and we should make precautions to avoid and minimize the impact during heavy rainfalls and drought conditions when we are engaging with home garden. And the climate also you need to consider, because there are some cold climate preferred crops, sometimes temperate climate preferred crops. So if you are very if you need to grow some crops like carrot, cabbages, sometimes they won't grow well if you are living in a dry climate region. So you need to think that also has a limitation. But whether you live in a temperate or cold in a tropical climate, still you have many options to grow. So don't be discouraged. Try to identify suitable crops to the particular land area where your home garden is located. And preference for certain crops also, this is also another, sometimes we can say, limitation, because some of the people, some of you like to grow certain crops. Let's say some people like to grow cauliflower, but cauliflower is sometimes one success in Colombo, sometimes in some other area. So your preference might be some other vegetables, but actually practically you may be able to grow only another type of vegetable in your area. So that's another limitation. And sometimes you will be interested growing and consuming okra and brinjal in the home, grown in your home garden, but your kids might be preferred in carrots, beets, or cabbages and leeks. So then there will be always some arguments between in your family because of the crop preference. So that also sometimes can be a limitation, because they might be complained, okay, Amma, you are growing all these things, but we don't like to eat them. And so that's another limitation. And another problem is wild animals. So some areas, the monkey problem, some areas, porcupine, and some areas, again, wild boar. So those problems are happening in certain different areas. So that also you need to consider when designing your home garden, especially when you're selecting crops and do the basic gardening practice. Then pest and diseases also you need to think about, because some areas are highly prone to some pest and diseases. So we need to avoid pest and disease problems when we are when we are designing a home garden. Then the final thing of limitation is the domestic animals. Sometimes if you have small puppies, if they are really playful, they might be going here and there and damaging all your plants. Then you need to make precautions when designing your home garden. You need to allocate some reasonable amount of space and for them, and then you can design the garden and allocate crops in the other area. Okay, we discussed about limitations, but there are opportunities also to be a very successful gardener. So first thing is your creativity. If you are very creative, you can find a lot of solutions for these problems. So Hansini, can you show these images, please? Okay, see, a lot of people complain, okay, I don't have enough space, I'm living on a, my garden is on a rooftop. So this is an alternative. So this person is very creative, and he has put he has used cement pot and placed this kind of 3 balls and with 2 rings with some choir ropes, and he has gone rich god. So this is a very simple technique. And this is another thing, use mega bottles. As I said you before, we can use recycled materials. So these are mega balls bottles fixed to a broomstick. So they cut the bottom part and filled with fertile soil, and they have grown it. This is actually what we did in Rupa and Ikavat program. So this is these cabbages are grown in this table. So actually, this is my home garden in Ratmalana. So this is a concrete slab. So I cannot grow any crop in the on this area. So what I did is I used this black color polythene and I filled it and I grew kangkung and basil in this area. So always think differently and try to mitigate the challenges and try to think and come up with a solution or alternative to uh, to the various environmental or various challenges you face with your creative mind. I think we have another two pictures. Yeah. So this is another simple technique. So this is a plastic pot and we can fill and we can have a polythene like this with a tube. So we can water it from this tube and there are spaces. So after two months, this is how it looks like. So this kind of a structure is enough for a family to get a good yield and good have a good meal once a week or once in 2 weeks if this go together. So always think creative, be creative, and try to design your home gardening using this kind of methods. And the final thing is the support from your family. So this is not a single person's effort. So home garden means home means where all the members of the family lives. So always try to help each other and always not to dominate. Try not to dominate your idea. Or if you like to grow brinjals, don't try to grow only brinjal. Please ask the other people's preference also. Then discuss with them and try to design your garden. Then they also will be happy. Okay, then various inputs comes to design your home garden. So then not only your ideas will work and the other people's ideas will work and their labor and their time, everything will work and this will bring to a very beautiful and well organized home garden in near future once you follow this uh, 7-day series. Uh, I think that's all. And after this session, you have a small assignment to conduct. So I will explain this. So the assessment is based on the concept described today, design your home garden. So you need to draw a rough sketch your land, including different structures in existence, and identify where you will be establish your home garden. So this is my this is my assessment. This is how I did my assessment. So this is the house. So you can follow this and do it. So this is my house. This is the carport. This is the road. So my family members they like to grow flowers in front of the garden. So I grew flowers, and this is where kids play, and they need some shade. And this is a lawn. So I planted uh, fruit trees around the lawn. Then it gives some shade when while they are playing. So this side, it's a utility area. So I haven't used this area for home gardening purposes because laundry lines are here, toilet pit, and dog house. So all this area. So I am not planning to grow any type of. I haven't, and I'm not using it to grow uh, vegetables. So then the kitchen is here almost here. Then I have set up a kitchen garden here. So kitchen garden means where I get my all like crops like curry leaves, rampe, and sometimes lemongrass, ginger. I can grow here. Even at a night, I can switch on a light and go and uh, have some curry leaves and bring back to the kitchen. So well is here, and then I grew vegetables in this area and greens in this area, and I have some free land area here. This is where I grow a coconut tree. So this is very hypothetical, uh, very hypothetical structure of uh, of a design of a home garden. So uh, this is just for you to give an example. So you can find it. You can follow this kind of a system, and it can be you might be having a very small, tiny rooftop garden or a backyard garden, never mind. Try to design in this kind of a way. And please, I think, Hansini, you can mention about the rest of it, how to submit the assignment and all.
So you can draw the design of your home garden and take a picture and send it to the email address that's given on the slide. That's hansini.ambasurya@democonservation.org. And this will also be sent to you in an email tomorrow, what you have to do and the email address that you have to send it to. Please be sure to send it by the 30th of November. So we have time to go through each of your responses, and we will be discussing it at the next webinar. So now we have some time for questions and answers. So you can drop in any of the questions in the Q&A tab. So Mr. Anuradha, we have a question that has come in. One is, please mention some plants based on their need of sunlight, such as little, partial, and full sunlight.
Yes,
So
so if you're growing vegetables and fruits, they always prefer heavy sunlight, like vegetables like okra, brinjals, or any other bitter gourd, snake gourd, they always prefer heavy sunlight. But some crops like manioc or sweet potato, they prefer some moderate sunlight. And sometimes some vegetables like even okra, that kind of vegetables, or long beans also, they prefer moderate sunlight. Then the shade loving crops are crops like kiriala, then ginger. Those kinds of crops prefer shade. So we can you can plant that kind of things, and we will be discussing more in next slides, especially during land preparation techniques. Also, how to select crops while you are maintaining your designing your garden.
thank you. Another question is, can we grow vines in pots such as pepper?
Can do, but then you need to maintain the soil fertility level, because these crops are perennial crops, like they grow more than 2 years. So time to time you need to change the soil media and add more nutrients. Then only, and sometimes you need to prune and the roots, especially to stimulate new coming of new roots. So that's the model. That's the way you need to work it out.
Thank you. So we have received a few questions on insects and pest management, but this will be covered in the upcoming webinar. So I think all your questions will be answered there, but we'll be sure to answer these questions through an email as well. Another question is, what plants can be grown in apartments?
What plants can be grown? Yes, especially if you have enough sunlight and if you have some containers or flower pots or anything. So best thing is you can grow greens, especially like color or whatever the herbs and greens you can easily grow. And some crops like lettuce and tomatoes and all the greens like local greens like mukunwanna, gotukala, kanku. You can grow nicely in these containers, but you should always grow short-term crops, because then you will get high return, because you can grow crops like ginger, but you will be getting it only once a time in a year, so that's not very economical for you. So always try to grow greens like short-term crops if you are living in an apartment.
Thank you, Anuradha. So I think that's all the time we have for today. But don't worry, all the questions will be answered through an email after the webinar is over. So the next webinar will be held on the 7th of December and will be on basic land preparation techniques. If you miss any part of today's webinar, you will receive a link to the recording via email, and also feedback form and instructions on how to continue, as in where you have to send the assessments to, etc. So thank you for being part of our webinar today. We hope you join the future webinars as well. Be sure to register with a working email address because we'll be tracking your attendance and communicating to you via that address. I would like to thank Mr. Anuradha on behalf of Dilma Tea and Dilma Conservation for your valuable time and sharing some amazing information with us today. Thank you to all the participants who have joined as well. Hopefully, the next webinar will be held on the 7th of December. And like I said, if your questions weren't answered today, don't worry, we will answer them through an email later on. With that, we conclude the webinar for the day. Have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you.